Y'all, this next lady that I'm about to talk about, respectfully, is probably one of the baddest motherfuckers to ever walk the face of the planet. In today's Mystery of Black History, we highlight Fannie Lou Hamer. The last of 20 children born into a sharecropping family, Fannie Lou Hamer went through the depths of Mississippi hell and forged her way to one of the most dominant civil rights activists during her time. She was a quintessential victim of racism and poverty who chose to stand tall and unbroken in the face of ever-present danger. In Chana Lee's 1999 biography, For Freedom's Sake, The Life of Fannie Lou Hamer, Lee covers the dangerous yet diligent life of the woman who was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Born October 6, 1917 in Montgomery County, Mississippi, life was immediate toiling. The child of two sharecroppers, Fannie's father, James, also worked as a Baptist preacher and bootlegger in the community, while her mother, Luella, like most black women sharecroppers, also labored in white homes as a domestic servant. Like all 19 of her siblings and both her parents, sharecropping was the only way of making a living. However, just before beginning her time as a field work, she had a bout with polio which left her with a lifelong limp. The limp, however, did not keep her from the fields. Fannie loved school and was a skilled speller and avid reader. However, the Great Depression loomed and money was scarce, forcing her out of school at the age of 12 to work and help the family survive. Fannie had a close relationship with her mother as she worked close with her every day. Sometimes the two worked side by side throughout 30 acres a day, traveling miles throughout the counties for work. Fannie's resolve and determination was hereditary. What her mother Luella lacked in material necessities, she compensated for with strength of character and ingenuity. The book states, Luella was young Fannie's main inspiration. She nurtured her daughter with determination and faith, and her affirming influence provided her child a special weapon in battle against self-hatred and shame. While Hamer underwent extensive formal training during her days in the Civil Rights Movement, her development as a leader began 40 years earlier as she picked cotton in the fields of Sunflower County under the watchful eye of her mother. Life remained backbreaking work for Fannie in her 20s, yet she found love marrying Perry Pap Hamer, a farmer and tractor driver 5 years her senior. Fannie worked at least 3 different jobs, and 2 of them were especially important in helping her establish an important community presence. In addition to farming and domestic work, she worked for a time as an insurance saleswoman. She was handpicked for this job because of her ability to handle numbers and because it was known that she was a recognized leader among her people. She had earned a reputation by being a fair timekeeper who often jeopardized her own relationship to the boss in her secret efforts to ensure fair returns for other sharecroppers. The time is August 1962. The toiling has continued and Fannie is 44 years old. A group called the Council of Federated Organizations, or COFO, has come to Mississippi with efforts of voting registrations. During this time, registering to vote as a black person could end with your body in a river. It was so wild that Mississippi Senator Theodore Bilbo publicly stated, the best way to stop niggers from voting is to visit them the night before the election. As the COFO group sought out volunteers to register, Fannie Lou was chosen as her work as a timekeeper on a plantation made her a notable name. In essence, Fannie's bravery made everyone else brave. Her efforts will begin in Indianola, Mississippi. She moved from being an individual whose sole means of resistance was survival to being one who took initiatives to promote collective struggle for real power. The Indianola experience showed Fannie a new possibility to make her life better, though she knew the process wouldn't be easily achieved. It showed her the strength in numbers for community action. For Hamer, the Indianola 18 was now a collective, an easily identifiable unit of folk bound by common concerns and committed to certain political objectives. The book states, Hamer had a distinctive place in this collective entity, not simply because of her long-standing membership in the Ruralville community, but also because she had begun seeing herself as embodying the potential for both justice and empowerment. Coming out of the fields and boldly walking into a courthouse was unimaginable for those individuals before August 31st, 1962. In 1960, blacks comprised more than 61% of the voting age population in Sunflower County, yet they made up only 1.2% of the registered voters. These efforts immediately made Fannie and her family a target. Fannie's husband, Pap, was fired from his job, and Fannie was dodging drive-by shootings throughout her own hometown. Police would break into her home at the dead of night and threaten to shoot and or beat her if she continued acting out. The harassment also came from city officials, with the Hamers constantly being charged outrageous telephone and electricity bills. Amid the number of groups that made COFO, Fannie gravitated towards the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, the most. Within the group, she met and saw young people who were pressed for equality for all people, not just for some people. In fact, there would be private discourse between Fannie and the NAACP, as Fannie would refer to them as the National Association for the Advancement of Certain People. SNCC would also gravitate towards Fannie because of how fearless and how battle-tested she was. This would become all the more evident in Winona, Mississippi, 1963. Returning from a teacher's training session in South Carolina, the bus in which Fannie and the other activists were riding was stopped. She and all the activists were arrested and taken to a jail where they were tortured and beaten for 3 days. The beating was so bad it left Hamer blinded in her left eye and her kidneys permanently damaged. And before the activists were released, they were held at gunpoint and forced to sign statements saying that they had beaten each other and the officers had nothing to do with it. Despite it all, Fannie continued to show her godlike strength. The book states, upon her return to her native state, Hamer knew the conditions had gone from bad to worse for black Mississippians. The losses of life continued to mount. On the same evening of the Winona beating, Hamer later discovered the NAACP Field Secretary Medgar Evers had been murdered on his doorstep by a sniper hidden in a nearby clump of bushes. Though this saddened her, it also left her inspired to fight even harder. She returned to the political activities more energized than ever, rising with the sun and going out in the early hours of the morning to canvass among the day laborers in the fields and making evening rounds to small countryside churches where she sang and preached a message of hope to anyone who would listen about the power of the vote. Throughout the middle part of the 1960s, Fannie would continue to rise as a national figure, fighting for the poorest of people. She, along with SNCC, would set up the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, and Fannie, along with other prominent Mississippi community organizers, worked to break the racist Mississippi political infrastructure. This fight would elevate from state to federal as Fannie took to the 1964 Democratic National Convention to force Democratic leaders to accept more black delegates nationwide. There was no more powerful force against all things racist than Fannie Lou Hamer, and while she respected the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, political repression was a true criminal. Politicians, specifically in Mississippi, had set up legal loopholes to keep black people from proper education, fair wages, and any opportunity to change it. Fannie would run for office a number of times, however, she was unsuccessful in every one. This, of course, made no sense as Fannie was a dominant grassroots organizer in voting districts that were majority black. Her political struggles aside, it would be a freedom farm that would be one of her signature accomplishments. I'll speak on that farm in the next reel. The late 60s was especially cruel to Fannie. The Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party dissolved, she had a fallout with SNCC, and her 22-year-old daughter died in her arms as the hospitals refused to care for her. In her last days, Fannie was everything to everybody. Though it was a tough feat, she was skilled in raising money through speeches and fundraising initiatives. However, running around the country to lighten the load of poor people took the ultimate toll on Fannie's health. Depression, hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease left her periodically exhausted and immobilized by 1972. And 4 years later, breast cancer had begun accelerating her decline. On March 14, 1977, Fannie Lou Hamer died from heart failure, leaving behind a record of good work matched by few others in her time. For freedom's sake, the life of Fannie Lou Hamer, a story of a heaven-sent woman and human rights legend. Like if you enjoyed this segment, share if it can benefit others, subscribe for more book-related content. Till then, stay in the book and stay out the way.